Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here on Log Too Deep. And in this video, I wanted to talk about a friend I once had years and years ago who had a problem with lying. It's really that simple. Anyways, so the video begins. So the story begins when I was in elementary school. I met this kid, I think in the third grade. I can't recall exactly when, obviously, but I was in third grade. He was in third grade. We met because we had similar interests in games and toys, movies, and shows. So we bonded pretty well, and he fit right in quite nicely with the friend group that I had at the time. And the friend group started to grow in a horizontal direction where we started expanding and putting in more and more people. We were definitely outcasts, more towards the leaning side of the not popular kids, but had our own group enough to not be considered isolates who were separated from the rest of the kids in the school. So we weren't completely isolated, but we weren't well known or even well liked because of how weird we were. Anyways, going through that time, he had a problem with making up stories. Now, as a kid, right, and it's completely fine if you're a kid and you pretend, play fantasy, play fiction, pretend you have a sword, pretend you have a weapon, do this, do that, make up stories about your life and your backstory for your character, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, everyone was able to differentiate between what was real and what wasn't real. Anyways, this kid had a hard time being honest. And he would do this by telling stories of how he was being followed by some mysterious group or entity because he had a father or a parental figure in this well high organization that was wanted or immigrated from a society that was challenging and rough. And from what we can tell, based on the evidence that we were able to gather as kids, none of this was true because we've been to his house, we've met his parents. There's no way that any of this is true based on just how they look and how they're doing in life. They just weren't. They definitely didn't scream immigrants that came from a country that was ruled in dictatorship by communists or fascists or whatever it was. But we at the time he told us we didn't understand that in the world was not as common as it was in the 40s and 30s. So we believed him that he was an immigrant from a harsh part of Russia who was ostracized, outcasted, and this and that, and that they had Russian gang members and mafia chasing after him. Now, something like this is outlandish, definitely, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of it was true or stemmed from an idea that he saw on a comic or whatever. But the sheer fact that we've known this kid for 10 plus years and nothing bad has ever happened to him or his family was a little alarming and surprising to say the least. Now, me and my close friend at the time, the super close friend, I mean, he was one of the closest friends I've had, but I had another guy who was just as close, if not closer than him. They kind of were like the two most trustworthy people that I had in my lives, which is a little ironic. But, anyways, the closest one, we'll call him Frank. Frank was a good friend of mine, like I said. He was much, I would argue and say he definitely was closer than for the other kid, the lion kid. We'll call him Charlie. So Frank and Charlie were the two closest friends I had at that time, and Frank would he noticed it too, right? As we got older and we started approaching middle school, and then going into high school, Frank brought up to me, "Hey, I think he's got this kind of this problem that he's got going on." It was in middle school, more towards seventh and eighth grade, when Frank brought it up to me, and he said, "Hey, we have Charlie over here who's making up stories and history about himself, about this and that, and we really didn't know how to confront him or address him." Initially, it was like a pity thing. We just kind of left it the way it was because maybe we felt bad that he was telling these stories. We all had our own theories that maybe he was just feeling, like he needs some excitement and whatever, and we just kind of let it be. He's not hurting anybody, and shame on us for not actually taking the time to call him out on it sooner, because obviously as you grow up and get older, telling lies in the real world to bloat your stimulus, or I said stimulus, bloat uh your your personality, or bloat whoever you are out there, especially if you're trying to, succeed in the world, can definitely get you in trouble and can get you into some dirty things. And anyways, he continued with these stories. Now, as we got older, the stories became less and less intense. Like the idea that the Russian mafia or gang was chasing him, kind of just up and vanished. Right? It originally started with a white van that would show up at school, and he claimed that white van right there is where they are, and they're trying to get me. And we all played into the idea, right? But at the end of the day, like I keep saying, we at the end of the school day, we all just went home. We did our thing and we just forgot about it until the very next day when the same thing would happen. Assuming that it's all part of an elaborate game, an awesome storytelling device that he was using to portray or act out whatever it is he was feeling. And we all did that. Anyways, years go by. We decide, let's call him out now, or let's tell him, let's address it, not call him out. I feel like that's a little bit more harsh than it sounds. We addressed it. We got on a call with him privately. We talked to him. We said, hey, man, so we noticed that you have been telling stories for a vast majority of your life, or at least a vast majority of our life together as friends in the friend group. Now, we were okay with this when we were kids because blah, 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 right? Kid stuff. And he pretty much just messes up straight out at the gate, and he says, yep, I've made up stories because your life seems so much more enthusiastic, energetic, and fun than mine, and I wanted to feel like I need to fit in. We comfort him. We tell him, hey, man, you're our friend. You don't have to feel like you have to compete. There's no competition with whose life is worse or harder. It's actually kind of cringe to do that. Right? We tell him what it is. Like it's not funny or cool to be like, oh, my life's harder than yours, therefore I am better. No, that's very like one-sided elementary school logic, and he definitely, at least on the surface, sounded like he understood where we were coming from, what we were talking about, how it affected us and the rest of the friend group and whatnot. And everybody in the friend group, not just me and Charlie, or me and Frank, not just me and Frank, had already known. Everybody in this friend group, by this time, the friend group had expanded outward to like 7 or 8 additional people. We all knew, but we all kept it real quiet, real comfortable, because we figured it's whatever. It's who he is, until we've decided no more, because it's kind of getting out of hand and we're almost in high school and he can't be doing this. Anyways, about a year or two later, or a year or two go by, and then we start to notice it. He's on a good roll. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna discredit him here. He's on a good roll where during high school for the first year and a half, he is doing really well. There's no issues, and I don't hear anything that's wrong or told out of pocket, until it starts to, I guess, regress and go back to how it was before. The lies kind of start with like exaggerating details, or increasing and or removing detail from stories, or just completely fabricating stuff entirely. But we all know that the fabricating stuff was much more rare, significantly rare. It was only when there wasn't really many of us around, so he definitely was still doing it. And I don't really know how many people he's like lied to that we haven't even talked to or met. And there's probably hundreds, if not dozens, of people he's probably lied to at this point. Everybody has been lied to by this guy, so yeah, that's a lot of interesting information. But anyways, kind of sidetracking here. Throughout the timeline, kind of just gets worse and worse and worse. And then in high school, me and Charlie again, no, me and Frank, sorry, me and Frank decide to reach out to him again. And we're like, we pull him aside and we say, man, this is not working. You need to stop lying. We pretty this time it's more aggressive, and it's actually a call out, not in front of people, not to embarrass him or create problems, but it was just a, hey, man, this needs to chill out. We need to not do this anymore because we are almost in senior year. We're almost adults. We're almost 18 years old. We are going into the real world, and we're doing it for the sake. We're doing this. We're pushing you. We're pulling you aside, and we're trying to push you to not be dishonest about your life and about this whole thing that you've built because we want to see you succeed. We don't want the world around you to collapse because you've falsified your reality. So we do this to get them on track. And it kind of just stays where it is. I mean, it doesn't get worse, but it doesn't get better. It just kind of goes, and we all just continue being friends. And, we still laugh at things. We still play games late at night. We'd still have long 3 a.m. calls and whatnot. But things start to change and go on as we all progress through our lives and we all graduate through high school. We mostly spend our time communicating. This was during COVID, by the way. Graduated high school during COVID in 2020. So for the people who are older than me and they're hearing that, you're gonna laugh at me, haha, poke fun at me all you want. That's fine. I think it's kind of funny too. But we graduate 2020, and that's when the height of COVID just starts. Like we graduate right when COVID starts, so we actually didn't even get any of the senior activities. Anyways, back to the real story. We're pretty much isolated for 6+ months. You guys know how that was. 2020 was the whole year was just shut down, and I stayed at my grandparents, and I played video games with my friends over Discord for the whole year. Pretty much blew through that year. Excuse me. Oh fuck. Anyways, we blew through that whole year just playing video games. And I mean, like, we would stay up for 3 or 4 days at a time playing games and then just sleep for 12 hours the next day or whatever it was. Like, it was super unhealthy. His stories, and we would hear bits and pieces about Charlie's little engagements and stuff and different things. But, because we were talking on social media now, not in person, a lot of the stories that we used to have stopped being, we stopped hearing about all the things about him saying like this and that. So we just assumed, right? Frank and I kind of assumed. Frank and I got a lot more closer, and we started to slowly, really back away from school friends because school friends are not the same as like real friends that you have outside of school. Real friends are people you stay with even after school. And we had, it was just the friend group at the time, which was considered real friends. School friends just kind of vanished, and we all separated, did our own thing, and whatever. I didn't care about them, and I still don't. I don't care about them to this day. But school friends are the people who we really kept close to us, and Frank and Charlie were obviously part of the school friends. So Charlie keeps going about what he's doing. We don't hear much about it, but we do play games with him, blah, blah, blah. And eventually I decided to join the military because I want to do something with my life and I didn't want to be stuck to where I was. And I felt like if I had stayed where I was, my life would have been pretty much over. I mean, in a sense that I would have been working at a 9 to 5 job at a fast food and I wouldn't have no future really. Not saying that customer service workers don't have futures, but it's very hard to get out of that horrible state of working for 8 to 10 hours a day and then trying to go to school in advance when if you just make the initiative now to try to give yourself a leg up early, you can get out of there. But this is not a life advice video. This is a story time. I keep getting sidetracked. So anyways, I joined the military. I'm there for a while. And before all this happens, before I actually go into the military, I have a falling out. I have a big falling out with Charlie. Not Frank, but Charlie. Frank was still there for me. And Charlie, I don't really remember what the falling out was for. I think it was because there was some inner drama that was happening in the friend group. And it caused both of us to bicker at each other and, call each other out for who we were. I guess, quote, who we were. When actuality, it was me calling him a fucking liar, right? And I hate to be using those words, but it kind of fires me up when I think about this now. I called him a liar in front of everybody in the friend group, and I made it public, right? I said, hey, Charlie is this and this. He's a liar. He's a scumbag. He doesn't like to tell the truth. He's lied to you about everything. Why would you trust him over me, right? And he was trying to ostracize me from the friend group. But this isn't a boohoo story for me. This is how he's a bad person in actuality video. So he does this to ostracize me, blah, 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 blah. But after that, we don't talk for about almost a year. It's been 6 months, almost a year at this point. I'm in the military. I'm about to finish my schooling in the military. I have like a military school that I go to. And as I'm about done with this, he reaches out to me. No, actually, I reach out to him first. And I reached out to him over on Instagram because that's just the platform we all used. And I apologized. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry about what happened. It was stupid to be so aggressive for this. Like, I didn't mean any harm by this. It was heat of the moment, blah blah blah. And I said my piece, and I didn't expect him to respond, but he responded literally 2 minutes after I texted him, and he said, "Yeah, man, I was gonna talk. I was actually gonna reach out to you today or tomorrow about this, and I want to mend the friendship." And I'm like, "Awesome." So I gave him a call. We spoke for a little bit, and we started laughing at old jokes, and we're reunited, and boom, and we got the friend group back. All right, it felt like the reignition, the reignition of the friend group, and it felt like we were on top of the world. So I spent a few years communicating with them back and forth through my Navy career, and as time goes on, it starts to dip in terms of like communication. We start to slowly stop really communicating with one another. I was going through some pretty dark times while in the military, so my mental state was fluctuating on and off. I was definitely not my best self, and I'm at fault for a lot of problems that transpired later on. I'm not even gonna lie. I definitely was pretty toxic before, and it definitely hurt a lot of the interpersonal relationships I had with this friend group. But it was not the reason why I ended up splitting off from this group of people that I had known for 10 plus years of my life. It's because I realized that being with them was fun and all, but I became addicted to the idea that I should be attached to them at all times, that my life was nothing without them. And I realized that I was becoming too dependent on them and that I needed to escape. I needed to get away from this kind of life that I was living, where I created an artificial dependency on people who I trusted with everything. I gave them everything and I trusted them. But that's, again, I sidetracked, but this is not about me. I want to fill in as much context clues as I possibly can so it doesn't seem like I'm skipping any details or I'm leaving anything out. Anyways, back to Charlie. So Charlie does this, Charlie does that. He explained, we go do our own thing for a few years, right? It's kind of like filler, like a filler episode of anime, if you want to call it that. Nothing major happens. But we do find out that my time in the military, within a few months of me actually being out of boot camp, Charlie decides to join the Ukrainian army. He volunteers to go fight the war against Russia. And everyone was taken aback because this guy, this kid who's lied and told stories and doesn't seem very heroic or brave, suddenly just decides to do this crazy thing, setting his life down for a country that he doesn't even live for. And this is all during the Ukrainian and Russian conflict, right? When they were going back and forth, they were trying to bring members on board because the Ukrainian army was smaller. Anyways, he joins this army and he deploys to boot camp and does whatever their training is, right? And he goes kind of like MIA for a little while, right? He disappears. He disappears for a little while, and he doesn't really talk much, but he does come every so often and post pictures of him in his quote uniform and pictures of his battle buddies. And in the Navy, we call them battle buddies, but it's pretty much just like a group of people who you work with in the field, right, to fight a war or whatever. And when he is available to call, we do call him and talk to him. And where he's at, it looks like he's in a warehouse, so somewhere where military members would be sitting and getting ready to be deployed, whatever it is. Anyways, so we kind of just go over this idea of him like, hey man, when are you going to come home? When are you going to come back? And he starts giving us hints about dates and whatnot. And eventually, he does come and visit us every so often. And we started to notice, just barely noticing, a little bit of inadequacies and flaws in his statements that he would make to us about it. So nothing actually was flawed from what we can tell about his joining the military over there, blah blah blah. It all sounded true. It all was true to us. And one day he comes and talks to us on Discord, and he says, "Guys, my leg is broken from an evolution that was done. We were up all night fighting, and I actually had broken my leg due to this event and whatnot." And but we asked him, "Hey, are you still gonna be able to come down and hang out with us? Because like you're supposed to be on a break, right? You're supposed to take leave soon." And he's like, "Yes, yes, I will be taking a leave period, and then I'm gonna go back." So and he comes down to visit. We all decide to make this big old occasion where we would meet up, and we all were like, "Let's go to the beach. We're all gonna go to the beach. We're all gonna hang out." And boom, he shows up, and then bam, there he is, right? And he's got both his legs completely intact. And, a part of me looks at that and I'm like, didn't he just break his leg? But I didn't say anything at that time because I thought maybe it's whatever. Maybe he didn't break it, but he like sprained it and it healed or whatever. I failed to take a deep look and deep dive into that story. I just assumed he was telling the truth because who would lie about that? That's crazy shit. No one lies about that. Anyways, we all spend time at the beach, blah, blah, blah. We all hang out. Time goes on, and eventually he goes off and goes back to war. And we're sad, we're bummed. And then weeks go by, we don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden, one of my other friends, my other friend, we'll call him Tim, right? Tim gets a text from a relative of Charlie's. Charlie's relative contacts him and says, "Hey," well, he says it in a more professional manner, but he's essentially the message is, unfortunately, due to circumstances, it appears that Charlie may have been killed in action, blah, blah, blah. And this information was passed to us. Everyone devastated. I can't tell you how upset we all were. We were all upset. And everyone was distraught. I remember like friend groups breaking down and crying, and we were all on a call at the time because we all wanted to hear the news, and it was devastating, right? And I told everyone in my family, and they all were super sad for me. They were like, "Dude, that sucks." It's like your friend that you've known for your whole year is gone, and it was terrible. A month or two go by, and we get another message from Charlie's cousin saying it turns out that he may actually still be alive. The truck that he was in that got bombed by Russian soldiers or Russian artillery actually didn't explode and kill everyone. And it was this and that, and a bunch of information came out that was like quote unquote being declassified as we speak, which if you know anything about clearances, that doesn't technically happen. Doesn't You don't become declassified until however long the classification of secret or whatever was set. But anyways, it becomes it was giving us it was being siphoned to us and shared to us specifically. So this cousin of Charlie's was giving us all this information, was relaying this information. We didn't really question how or why until eventually later on, which I'll get into. But we did receive a notification one day that he's alive, 100%, and that he was in hiding for a bit because he didn't want to be captured. He did reach out to us eventually, much later on. I think this is about maybe 5 months later at this point. So it's almost been 2 years, almost three, if I'm getting my times a little correctly. So nearing the end of my time in the military, we find out that he's okay and that he's doing great. He's doing okay, and that he was hospitalized for a little bit for some wounds and damages that he took, but he actually was fine, and he didn't die. And we were all ecstatic. We're like, it's a miracle, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. And he came back to visit, and he didn't have his phone. He lost it. He said he lost his phone while he was out there in battle. So he lost his phone apparently, and one of Frank's girlfriend at the time, I think they're still together. I'm not too sure. Frank's girlfriend decided to give him her old phone. She had an old iPhone that she wasn't using. She had upgraded, and she wanted to give it to Charlie because she said, "Hey, if you ever need communication, use this. You can use it, and you'll come back. You can always talk to us. Like we'll always be available." And he took it with happiness and appreciation, and he said, "Yes, I will be sure to do that." And he had this phone for a few weeks, and we were talking until Tim one day kind of shows up to a Discord call. We're all like playing games, and we assume that he's gone. He's out back on the field doing stuff, and we're just like, "Yep, I hope he's okay." And Tim kind of starts raising up suspicions started to slowly that we all started to slowly second think, or I guess second guess, about things he said in the past and whatnot. And Tim is like, what's weird about this and that? And we start, I don't even know how this transpired, but Tim comes into the call and he starts talking about something, and then it starts to devolve into something about Charlie, and then Tim is like, what's weird about Charlie's thing? Blah blah blah. And we start questioning it now, and we all start getting really curious. Like, and now it becomes a point of like, no, it's no longer just curiosity of like, oh, maybe this or that. Now it became now it became something that is, wow, that really doesn't make sense. Why would that happen? And he brought up the biggest one that I can vividly still hear in my head, where he said his leg was broken. He told us that his leg was broken, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, he shows up for the beach trip, and he has no damages. He's not in a cast. He's not wearing crutches. He's fine, completely fine. And that's when I spoke up and I said, you know what? Tim is right. That is a very weird thing, because I asked myself that same question and I didn't say anything about it. I kept it real quiet. And Tim was like, yeah, see, it's weird, right? And then everybody in that call started to be like, huh, that is strange. That is very strange. So we all started to gather more evidence, look around at his pictures, and Tim started doing some reverse Google image searching on some of the screenshots or the pictures that he sent to us. And it turns out the pictures that he was sending us of events happening in the war, blah blah blah, like of him being in the quote the trenches, I guess you could say, were just pictures taken off of Google or Reddit. And we were like, that's what the fuck? We were all confused. We're all scratching our heads like, what the fuck does that mean? And so we decide to use the phone that we given him. Frank's girlfriend decides, I'm gonna use this phone because he should be over there, and we're gonna track his iPhone. We're gonna track the phone. So they tracked the phone. They tracked it, and it located itself, or it was showing that it was at his home address, being charged. And we were like, he doesn't have anybody that's living with him that would be using the phone. Like, his mom isn't using the phone, nor is his stepdad using the phone. So what is happening? And we start doing a little bit more investigation. I kind of stay away from it because I had my own stuff going on, but I was in the background listening. We're pretty much just listening and waiting for information. And Frank was relaying all that information for me because I couldn't be there. I was halfway across the world. There's no way, or I was across the U.S. There's no way, and I was going to be able to be a part of any of that drama. But things start going out, and we start figuring out more and more. And they get the phone. They ended up, confronting him about it. And they actually do confront him. And they ended up finding out a whole bunch of stuff that gets passed over to me. So I ended up finding out about it secondhand. And it's pretty much just, oh yeah, he lied. He lied about everything he ever did. He never joined the Ukrainian army. He never fought in a war. He never has been shot at. He's never nearly died. He never died. He never did any of that stuff. Everything he said from the moment we left high school was fabricated. That was almost 5 years of information, of story. He told a 5-year story that was completely fabricated. None of it was real. Which is when we all collectively agreed that nothing he's told us, probably up until elementary school, has been legitimately true. It can't be. There's nothing. We stopped trusting him. We pretty much just confronted him about it. We said, "Hey, you fucking lied to us. You're playing dead. You're ignoring us, but we know you're alive in your home. You're not. You're not a soldier. You never served in any army. You don't have any awards. You're a liar. You're a bastard." And I myself was the most upset because I was actually in the Navy serving my country. So to hear that I had a friend who pretty much played stolen valor for a country that was losing a was well, they were winning the war. I'm not going to say they were losing, but were casualties were dying, soldiers were being killed, and there was prisoners of war. All these horrific things happening in that side of the world, and I was over there too. I was over there on a deployment. I wasn't on boots on the ground, but I was over there on deployment. So for him to do that was it made me so fucking mad. I ended up texting him and I told him, "Hey, if I ever see you on the streets, I'm gonna kill you." And that's as honest as I can be. Honest to God is what my text was if I ever catch you on the streets, it's over. I will fucking kill you because you've just lied and you've manipulated. You're a piece of trash. You're garbage. You're a disgrace to humanity and a disgrace to all service members. Of course, he didn't respond. Why would he respond? I ended up never seeing him again. I heard that he moved somewhere, probably to Michigan. And good riddance to you. Go lie to some other people. Go fuck up your life if you want to over there. Does not matter. Anyways, the secret additional piece of information that I'm going to share is a little disgusting. I say a little bit because it's uncomfortable. So disclaimer now: if you are not interested in hearing from this point on, click off now. But if you are interested, stick around. But again, this is a disclaimer. It's a little disturbing. So after they received the phone from him, they decide to go through it because what the fuck is he hiding? And they start looking at the iCloud because the iClouds were linked. And France's, yeah, oh sorry. His girlfriend, I'm sorry, oh man. His girlfriend starts to look through the iCloud and they see pictures of women like walking and sitting. And they get super confused and they're like, what the fuck? And they start seeing upskirt shots of girls and updresses shots. And they start seeing pictures of girls' panties, they of all these things, right? Underwear, and it's like creepy as fuck, weird stalker shit. And it's not just of one girl; it's like upskirt shots of girls, and even an upskirt shot of one of our friends in the group who was a girl. They were sitting at a table talking, I guess, and he snookily took the phone out and took a picture of her underwear from under the table of an upskirt shot. And nobody knew this for a while because no one and it just wasn't nobody found it. And then they finally go through the iCloud. They see all these pictures. They see pictures of everybody, right? And we're like, what kind of fucking just talking about this is making me like die internally. They see these pictures and they're like, what kind of fucking psychomaniac does this? Who does this and who has the audacity to put this in the iCloud? And we start seeing screenshots of like our Discord profile pictures, which had our physical faces on it because we were using personal ones that we didn't use for public communication. So our Discord profiles had screenshots of our profiles. So we could only assume that he's probably been sharing these pictures with other people, making horrendous comments or talking about whatever it is, whether it was good or bad, posting our pictures on public Discord servers for probably his incel friends who were a bunch of fucking losers, probably pedophiles too. Because who knows what he was doing with these pictures. And we were all pissed at him. Every one of my friends in the group, except for the females, we all collectively agreed, hey, if we see him, we jump him. And I think that's fair. Now, normally I'm against the idea of jumping someone because it's not a fair fight. It's a little cowardly and it's unfair. But in this case, if it's a predator or someone who's intentionally doing something to be malicious to someone like a woman, a girl, a child, I wholeheartedly believe that they deserve to be fucking slaughtered. And you can hate me for that comment if you want, but anyone who's normal is gonna agree with me that if you are a predator of some form, you deserve the wood chipper. So he definitely deserves the wood chipper. Even to this day, I still believe he does because of what he did was fucking disgusting, and who knows what he's doing down there in Michigan. Anyways, this fucking guy was an awful person. And that really wraps up the story. As for everything else that happens afterward, it just kind of mellows out. I end up leaving the friend group. My life was going in a direction that ended up prospering and getting better for me. Even though I was still very depressed, I still, started to experience a big increase in life. Better job, better stuff, better living, and I was quote making it in life. I'm making it, and I'm still making it right now. And my friends kind of were staying in one spot. They didn't really move up. They didn't move out, and I didn't want to stay tethered down to that kind of lifestyle. And no hate to them. Everyone has their own life, and everyone progresses differently. There's no hate or shame to anybody who doesn't move out with their parents by the time they're 20. Right? It's hard to. It's almost impossible nowadays. I just had the fortunate luck and the blessings to do so. But anyways, this is again a sidetracked. This is a video about him, about the psychopath liar. Anyways, guys, thank you all for watching. And if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more. And if there's more story times videos you guys want from me, please do let me know in the comments below. I've got more in the chamber. I just don't know if I want to tell them. But my life's not that boring. So if you do want more videos for story times, I could probably only make like 4 more because I am very boring and very, very boring. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later. Peace out.